If you followed my videos on the executioners of the Third Reich, you will have seen how the number of executions fell during the Weimar Republic. It might even have been abolished had it not been for serial killer Peter Kürten, whose crimes were so disgusting that no other punishment other than death seemed possible. In the final 5 years of the Weimar Republic, the only person to be executed in Prussia was this serial killer, Peter Kürten. However, by the beginning of the 1930s, the pendulum was beginning to swing the other way. Political violence on the streets was one reason. Whereas few people were executed during the Weimar Republic, thousands faced the death penalty in Nazi Germany. The very first person to be executed in Nazi Germany was not a political opponent of the National Socialists, but a common criminal, Ernst Reins. Ernst Reins was born on the 14th of August 1907 in Berlin-Charlottenburg. Reins was the 17th child of a bricklayer who died at an early age. Of the 17 children, only 3 survived infancy, a boy and 2 girls. The death of the father meant that very little money came into the household. This was exacerbated by the conditions that existed as a result of the First World War. Although he grew up in poverty, Reins was unusually intelligent and dreamed of being an architect. However, there was no money for studies, and thus he had to do the same job as his father, that of a bricklayer, which he hated. In 1927, Reins became engaged to a woman from a family that was much better off than he was. However, in 1930 the Depression hit, unemployment hit 6 million, and Reins was one of them. Her parents considered that she was too good for him and persuaded her to break off the engagement. Embittered by this episode and seeking an escape from poverty, he sought an opportunity to quickly make a lot of money to finance his further training as an architect. In April 1931, Reins decided to attempt a robbery of a money mail carrier. Post office workers would visit people at home and give them money such as social security benefits or money that had been sent to them. Such carriers in the central areas of Berlin may have had a lot of homes to visit, and as such could be carrying a great deal of cash on them. On the 29th of April 1931, Reins noticed that a widow, Frau Möbius, had advertised a room in her house at Gossowstrasse 10 in Berlin-Schöneberg. He rented it under the name Erich Wichel. He then went to a post office on Genneterstrasse, where he made a postal order for 5 marks payable to Wichel, with instructions to deliver it to the address on Gossowstrasse. Early in the morning of the 1st of May 1931, Reins moved into the room on the ground floor of the widow Möbius's house as the new tenant. Shortly thereafter, he requested that his landlady take his glasses to an optician for repairs. Therefore, he was alone at home when the mail carrier, 52-year-old Gustav Schwan, came to the house. He had the postal order and the cash that accompanied it. Reins invited him into the apartment and, as identification, presented him with a business card in the name of Erich Wichel with an address in Mödling near Vienna. When Schwan looked down to examine the business card, Reins struck him with a piece of lead pipe wrapped in linen and filled with sand. Reins fell down unconscious onto a chaise-longue. The blow to his head killed him. Reins opened the mailman's wallet, took out all the cash amounting to 13,500 Reichsmarks, and left the scene of the crime. The money would have been equivalent to something like 12 to 18 years' wages for him as a bricklayer. Reins had, however, left a number of clues for police investigators Draeger and Mielens of the Berlin homicide squad. They quickly established that the alleged tenant of the apartment was not a former taxi dancer of the Hotel Adlon, who was now living in Vienna. A taxi dancer is someone employed by a dance studio or a club, or in this case a high-end hotel, who invites members of the opposite sex to dance. Wickel was quickly ruled out as the perpetrator due to his whereabouts at the time of the crime being established, especially as the widow Mobius confirmed that he was not the man who had rented her room. Reins had left a shirt collar at the scene of the crime, and the police were able to read a laundry mark from it. By tracing this laundry mark, as early as the 4th of May 1931, their number one suspect was Reins. Reins knew Wickel from visits to the Hotel Adlon. He used to go there with his two sisters, who used to model clothes there. That same night, an international arrest warrant was issued for Reins. It didn't take long for Reins to be found. He was staying in Genoa, Italy at the Hotel Excelsior with his sisters. He had planned to travel from Genoa to South America by ship. He made a full confession to the Italian police that same day. The full confession was later repeated to German authorities, the lawyer of Reins having informed him that he'd be unlikely to be executed for this crime. In December 1931, Reins was found guilty of murder by a jury at the Berlin Regional Court and sentenced to death. However, the sentence was initially stayed. There were questions about the age of Reins, the poverty of his youth, and above all the fact that there was much evidence to suggest that, contrary to the jury's verdict, Schwann's killing had been accidental and thus manslaughter, which did not carry the death penalty. Germany was still a federal state, and the sentence went right up to cabinet level. In charge of the provisional Prussian state government was Franz von Papen, who had more or less been granted power on the 20th of July 1932, when the state elections in Prussia failed to produce a workable government. When the cabinet met on the 27th of October 1932, it discussed the case of the sentence of Reins. However, the Commissioner for the Prussian Ministry of Justice, the de facto Minister of Justice, Heinrich Hölscher, advocated for the execution of the sentence. A final decision was postponed until the government situation in Prussia had been clarified. When the Reich Commissariat for Prussia was abolished, and the new Prussian government was headed by Nazi politician Hermann Göring, the situation changed. This happened after Hitler was granted power at the end of January 1933. Hermann Göring lifted the stay of execution. Göring refused to exercise his right of pardon as Prime Minister of Prussia. On the 8th of May 1933 at 1900 hours, Reins was brought to the prison at Plötzensee for his final night, where this card was filled out. There was no need to fill in the details below. The words "to death" on the 9th of May 1933 were sufficient. The following morning he was led into the courtyard of Plötzensee prison. It was the early morning of the 9th of May 1933, 2 years and 1 week after his crime. There, along with Johannes Kabelitz, who had also been sentenced to death for murder, he was executed with a hand axe by executioner Karl Gröbler. Reins' sentence was carried out at 0600 in the morning, and Kabelitz's at 0608. According to newspaper reports, both were completely composed. This is the death certificate of Reins, dated the 11th of May 1933. The Nazi press celebrated the double execution. The Havelländische Rundschau wrote on the 10th of May 1933, "The days are over when the press will declare that it's not the murderer, but the murdered who is guilty." The fuss surrounding the murderer Ernst Reins was downright outrageous. The Marxist Prussian government repeatedly delayed the execution of the death sentence, and even after the Brown-Severin government had long since been deposed, the left-wing press tried to beg for sympathy and secure a pardon for this monster who after the terrible crime embarked on a pleasure trip to Italy unburdened by remorse. No wonder, with such a legal interpretation, that the death sentence, which had degenerated into a mere formality, no longer held any fear, and we in Germany experienced a veritable murder epidemic. With this execution, the years-long struggle over the death penalty has been clearly decided. The death penalty has been reinstated, and according to the will of the national government, and in accordance with a healthy sense of justice, crime will once again bring the punishment it deserves. And Das Echo also said something similar. The Reins case in particular gave a certain breed of publicists cause for the most repulsive apologies and protests against the death penalty, which according to the ideology of human rights activists was a cultural disgrace. Now this murky confusion of the simplest of criminal acts is over. The death penalty is being carried out again, and thus the rabble is being kept in check. This is entirely in keeping with the people's healthy sense of justice. In front of the red posters announcing the execution of Reins and Kabalitz, one could hear only loud applause from the crowd everywhere. Only in a sick and weak state will the criminal be presented to the public as an interesting variant. A healthy community relentlessly eliminates antisocial elements and resolutely directs the edge of the sword against the criminal. Reins was the first person to be executed in Nazi Germany. Tens of thousands would follow him to decapitation by hand axe or guillotine, shooting or hanging. Unlike Reins, who was a criminal who had murdered someone, most of the others were killed because they opposed the regime. For this presentation I've used news articles from the time coming from the following publications: BZ am Mittag, Sozialistische Arbeiterzeitung, Havelländische Rundschau, and Das Echo. I hope you found this interesting. I upload every Tuesday and Friday at 2000 hours Central European time and cover themes largely related to the Third Reich. I've also done a video on the executioner Karl Gröpler, who decapitated Reins, a link to which you can find here. For now, thanks for watching and all the best for me.